Hey, LeGrandLive.tv. Glad you're here with us today. I'm sitting down with Greg Barreto, our local state representative, and we're going to talk about Measure 97.
And local businessman.
And local businessman. Yeah, that's right. They have this little small company out.
That's right.
Outside of town here, and we're going to talk about Measure 97 and how that affects the state and how it affects you as a businessman. Want to give a shout out to Marketplace Family Foods. We're right now in the new Mountaineer Room, just above Marketplace Family Foods and 4th Street Bistro, and they've allowed us to use this. And I just want to thank our sponsors, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grand Ronde Hospital, Valley Realty, and Marketplace Family Foods. So, Greg, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that you keep the road pretty hot between here and Salem, and thanks for taking the time to sit down with us. So
you're very welcome.
So tell me, what is Measure 97? For those people that don't know, I mean, there's lots of advertising about it.
Sure. Yeah, and you'll see a lot more in the next 3 weeks. I mean, we got 3 weeks left of the elections, and you're going to see it right up to the end. It's a tight measure right now. I think it's polling about even. So it's not going to be a slam dunk one way or the other. It's contentious. It is started out as initiative petition 28, and that's when most people that were interested heard about it. It is a 2.5% tax on larger corporations, C corporations, that do over $25 million in gross sales. It's a tax on sales, not on profit. And so this is a tax that will affect everyone in Oregon, period. They project the LRO, the Legislative Revenue Office, did a research on it, put out a copy of how they said this would affect Oregonians, how it would affect businesses, how it would affect communities. And so you want me to just keep going?
Yeah, go ahead. And that's a nonpartisan office, correct?
That is a nonpartisan office. They give information to the legislature on both sides, you know, and so what they come up with is the most accurate viewpoint of what these things do. And it's not just this. Whatever legislators ask, they will try and come up with that information. And so with this IP 28 being a huge tax burden on larger corporations, they came up with some figures that in every 2 years, a biennium, which is our tax years, it would increase the revenue to the state by approximately $6 billion. That's $6 billion with a B. Okay, so right now, our general fund, the amount of money that we get in from the general fund, from taxes, license fees, is right around $18 billion. So you're talking a third. Wow. A third more of our general fund. So out of this $6 billion, it would be approximately $3 billion a year, and they figured that 66% of that, about 2/3 of that, would be paid by the consumer. The other third would be paid through other states. You know, businesses like this go state to state, so it would be absorbed or picked up from people in other states too. So out of this 2/3, you figure that would be $2 billion a year, divided by the number of people in Oregon, which is about 4 million. You would pay, each person, man, woman, and child, would be paying approximately $500 to $600 a year coming out of, in addition, you know, to whatever the cost of living is in Oregon right now.
Now, so, and for those people that don't understand, how would somebody like me pay an additional $500? How does that actually come down to my real life?
In your real life, these are the costs that you will see go up. Your car will go up. Your fuel will go up. Your insurance will go up.
Because all those people providing that, they're gonna be taxed, and so they're gonna have to make up for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, these are businesses that are high volume, low profit. If you look at the No on 97, the four main, I mean, there's quite a few people that are trying to fight this ballot measure, but the top 4 spots are grocery stores, Costco being number 1.
Okay.
So you're seeing Costco, Kroger's, Fred Meyer, all of these know that this is going to be a tax on them that they're going to have to pass on to the consumer, which is you or I or whoever shops at these stores. But it's not going to be, you're going to see it at Safeway. You may see some of these smaller stores, maybe like what we're in right now, won't get hit with this tax. But these people also don't buy the volume that these other stores
Right.
do too. And so at these volume stores where they're buying, yeah, it will up the price of the product.
And why is that? Why does that impact groceries more than anybody else?
Well, it'll impact grocery stores because they do such high volume and they have such a low profit margin.
Okay.
See, their profit margin at grocery stores 1 to 3%. I mean, it's not big. And so then you're adding 2.5% to that. You know, if they just paid a 2.5% tax on their sales, you know, that wouldn't do much. But when you talk about 2.5% on their gross sales, that takes all of their profits away, and they're going to have to pass that on.
Okay.
Period.
Wow. So the people that are, how did this come about? I mean, who originated the bill and why?
Originated by a previous legislator named Ben Unger. Ben Unger is ahead of Our Oregon, O-U-R. You can go online and look at that. And Our Oregon is basically the political arm for the public unions in Oregon, whether it's AFSCME, SEIU, you know, the larger public unions. So.
Okay. And what do they have to gain? Why would they support this?
Well, thank you for asking that question. So here's again what the LRO, the Revenue Office, projected. This bill or this ballot measure, if passed, Oregon would lose 38,000 private sector jobs.
Okay.
It would increase the state jobs by 18,000. So you're losing 38,000 private sector jobs, and these are people that pay taxes into the state. You're incurring a greater cost in Oregon by creating another 18,000 jobs.
So we're losing jobs because
Private sector jobs.
the private sector jobs, because it's costing more money to do business because of the tax, and so then people get laid off.
Or
is that
they will get laid off, but there will be businesses move out of Oregon.
Okay.
I can tell you right now, several businesses that have either I've heard of or have come to me and I've had discussions with that are leaving. Barreto Manufacturing being one of them. We won't leave this valley, but if this thing passes, we would probably have to move our corporate headquarters out of the state. And the reason for that is because the product that we buy from these larger corporations. We buy from Briggs & Stratton, we buy from Honda, we buy from Eaton, we buy steel, we buy all of these things, insurance. You know, we buy all of these things and they would increase the cost of goods. Our product would just at the base level, what it costs us to build that product, would raise 2.5% minimum.
Okay.
So we compete with companies in the Midwest that are already larger companies, much larger than us, and they buy better than us, and they won't have to raise their cost of goods by 2.5%. So we would have to set up our headquarters out of state and purchase from there so that we're doing all the transfer of product and dollars, you know, from there, and then ship it in here to have it assembled. You know, and this is the kind of stuff that I don't know that they take all of this into account. I mean, here we are, a small business in Eastern Oregon, manufacturing, sending product outside the state, outside the country, bringing dollars back in.
That's a win locally.
It is, yeah, but it's absolutely asinine for the state government and the governor saying, yeah, I'm all behind 97, not realizing what it will do to small businesses and small communities over here, or what it's going to do to Portland too. May Trucking over in Kaiser, 400 employees. They said, we're leaving if this thing comes in. You see these, okay, when Oregon went from a timber state to a high-tech state, and you saw Intel come in, and you see all of these other little, smaller software companies start to sprout up, and they trade off engineers. They are going to have to pay on the product, that they're going to have to raise the cost of their product too. The things that the components that they get in. When this was back in IP28, I ran into the political director from Intel, and I was asking her, have you figured out how this would affect Intel if this passed? And she said, well, the biggest thing we're looking at is how it would affect our vendors, those people that we purchase from. And that's the same way it'll affect us too. We're not a $25 million C corporation, but it'll affect us down here.
I see. So even if you don't make 25 million a year, it's because of your suppliers, because they do, then that does impact you.
I'm gonna just take a shot at this, and I may be wrong, but you probably don't make $25 million a year.
No.
Okay, but your cost of goods will go up too. Your insurance is going to go up. The fuel is going to go up. Your groceries are going to go up. Everything's going to go up in your life that you purchase from these other.
Because like my insurance is through Safeco.
Sure.
Okay, they're out of the state. They're clearly more than a $25 million.
That's right. But because they do business in the state and they have people here that represent them in the state, they call that nexus.
Okay.
And because there's nexus here, they will have to raise their price. That will be affected because they service people inside the state.
Okay.
At a rate over, I'm guessing, over 25 million.
So this seems like a clear thing why it would not, why it's not a good thing. But there has to be a really good reason why this is even supported. What would the people that support this, what do they say? Why is this important?
Primarily the people that support this, and this is what they're pushing. They're saying, hey, this is going to fund the elderly, it's going to fund schools, and it's going to fund healthcare.
Okay.
Okay. And several other things along the way. They have no say in where these dollars go once the state
because of the way it's written.
That's right.
Is that right? Okay.
However, I think most people would agree that Oregon right now, I just heard that we were number 48 or 49th now in education, second from the bottom, that dollars injected into education would help with the number of kids in schools, the number of teachers, et cetera, and give us more money in education. Education is one of the drivers, I think, that they are using as a tool or as a reason that you should vote for this bill. Not taking a look at all the fallout that you're going to see at the other end of this. This is one of those. Things like. I would compare it to PERS. Okay, back when PERS, when they first started that, and the public retirement system started back in the late 40s after World War II. But it was when the public union started coming in that it started taking off, and it became unsustainable. And then I think it was '97 when they made the first cut to PERS. But here you have this retirement benefits that all of a sudden people are making as much when they retire as they are when they're working. And you say in the private sector, for me, how could I sustain that? How could I stay in business and pay for my employees while they're working for me, and then when they leave, I continue to pay them?
Right.
I can't afford that. No private enterprise can. But the state, or the government, they can? Well, sure, because we pay our tax dollars. And then when that continues to increase, guess what? They just go right back to us and say, we need more money. So there will never be enough money in government to satisfy these people, period. In the last biennium, the general fund went up by $1.8 billion. Was that enough to help fund education? No, they spent it elsewhere. This is where when you run a government, and it's not like the whole legislature decides where this money goes. There's a few people that figure out the budget, the governor's budget, and they work off of that, and then they decide where this money goes. One of my bills this year was, we need a third-party entity to come into every agency, and you pay them a percentage pro bono of what they can save out of that agency. And I would love to be one of those companies that would come in and say, I think we can cut a little fat here. But there is no one. What is the incentive in any government agency to cut funds?
Shortage of funds.
Yeah, no.
Well, there is none.
Saying,
okay.
There is none. There's no incentive. There's no one that goes in there and looks and say, I think it would really help this agency to start cutting this down to size to where we become more efficient.
Right.
In manufacturing, the one thing that you look at all the time, is efficiency. Because you're competing with other companies out there that are looking at the exact same thing, and they're trying to put out a product that's less expensive, that is better than what you do, that you can sell under them because it's a better product for less money, or at least the value is there. So you're always looking at efficiency. The government never looks at efficiency.
Right. So, but what I was referring to is that, if I'm understanding correctly, so there's a budget shortfall. That's why, and that's a yearly thing, and that's why this conversation is even on the table.
It's biannual.
Right. And so, but rather than looking at ways of becoming more efficient, they're just looking at ways to get more money.
That's very well said.
Okay.
More revenue, more revenue, more revenue.
Okay. And so, but in the real world, I mean, clearly you've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Getting my feet wet.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been in business a long time. You've been a local businessman. We can see the trend. I mean, what are the, so for those people that say, we need more money for schools, we need more money for some of these things that are really important, what is a practical answer for that?
Yeah, one of the things that we're facing, and this is genuine, is we're facing a PERS deficit, okay? And everyone has heard about this, and this year it'll be about $1 billion, I think. And
okay, and so the
increasing costs.
So people that don't understand, PERS is the state retirement, and the deal with PERS is that it is unsustainable.
Yeah.
People, the amount of money that people are retiring with is unsustainable for the state long term. Correct? Okay.
PERS stands for Public Employee Retirement System.
Okay. And so there's a deficit coming. Now go ahead and tell me.
Yeah, so there is not enough money in the state, they have a large amount set aside right now. I mean, that's in a fund right now that is gaining interest, but right now investments don't return that much in this current marketplace. And so they're projecting this deficit, and so right now it's projected about $1 billion, I think, this next biennium, maybe a little more than that. And then also Medicaid, which is paid for by the federal government. Medicaid, they're cutting back and saying the state now is responsible for 6 to 10% of that. And so you have that load coming on too. And so you're going to have I just heard last week it was 1.3 billion, but up to 2 billion, shortfall this coming biennium over what they spent in the last biennium. And so they have to make that up. And so they say, well, how do we make this up? We need more revenue. Where do we get that from? And depending on how the economy's going and what they project coming in addition to what it was 2 years ago, they'll take a look at that and say, we're 1.3 billion short. So where are we going to get that? Well, so our Oregon says, hey, I know where we get it. We just tax business. These filthy, greedy businesses that are so big and they never pay taxes. So that was their side of it. But then,
now,
wait a minute.
And do they pay taxes? I mean, that's an important. So the outside companies, Briggs and Stratton, how do they pay state taxes? I mean.
Yeah, Briggs and Stratton, I don't know that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, go. Don't mean to interrupt you. But
now
go
the
ahead.
businesses that they have out here to distribute to them pay taxes. The business that purchased from them pay taxes.
Okay, got it.
And most companies, if they have Nexus, which they have distribution here, which they do, or they have representation here, then they will be charged a tax on whatever they sell into Oregon.
Okay.
So it's the same as what did Intel and Nike leverage the state for just a few years ago? It's a single sales factor that they have, and Oregon is set up with this so that they are only taxed income tax-wise on what they sell in Oregon. The product that they sell in Oregon is taxed, but the product that they sell to other states is taxed by other states.
Okay.
So not every state has that. Oregon does, and that's what Nike and Intel wanted to do, is say, hey, we don't want this going away. We like this form of taxation. So they brought the legislature in a special session, said, hey, you know, these guys want this, and they say, if you want them to expand here in Oregon and create more jobs, which good paying jobs, you know, and those good paying jobs pay taxes, okay, then we want them to stay and we want them to expand. And that's good policy.
Okay.
Okay, that's good policy because it's the job creators that create the work, create the jobs, and those people pay taxes. Matter of fact, there are states that, like Wyoming, like South Dakota, like Florida, like Texas, that have no corporate income tax because they realize the value of businesses coming in and creating jobs, good paying jobs, that the people then pay the taxes. Do the businesses pay taxes? Yeah, absolutely. Do I pay taxes? Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I pay a lot to the state and I pay a lot to the feds, you know.
Right.
But some of these larger companies, they can leverage that because they create a lot of jobs and a lot of good paying jobs.
Right.
But when we start targeting them and saying, you know, you guys, you big evil corporations aren't paying your fair share. I'm sorry, I have a big problem with fair share, and most of this come from people that don't even pay taxes at all. And when you throw the public unions in there, you know, what are the public unions in it for? Well, they want more members. Why? Because those members pay more dues, and those dues make them more powerful. You know, right now I have a big problem with the way the public unions, getting off of the 97 thing, so we can just kind of keep going.
No, it's all right.
But one of the things that the Tax Foundation just sent out, they sent a flyer to everybody in the state, and you probably got one too, and it said in the last 35 years, our budget in Oregon has gone from $7 billion to $70 billion. From $7 billion to $70 billion. And it has gone up at twice the rate of inflation and twice the rate of our population. So how do you justify that?
Wow.
Well, you start looking back at, well, what changed in those last 35 years? Well, public unions came in the late 60s, you know, and then they started bargaining in the later 60s, in through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And so you see that bargaining for what? For higher wages and for greater benefits. And right now you look at the benefits package of a lot of government workers, and it's the best benefit package of anyone, bar none. Matter of fact, my wife went to a training last week at the Capitol, and the first thing that the gal that was putting on the training said, the state of Oregon has the best health care plan of any other state in the union, and the private sector cannot even compete with us. Well, who pays the wages of the state workers?
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
The private sector. And I have to, you know, my last newsletter 2 months ago, actually it wasn't the last one, but pretty close, you know, I had to explain that because I was visiting with a lot of these state workers, and they said, well, Greg, we pay taxes. And I said, I know you do. But I said, those taxes are just really a reduction in what the state pays you because those taxes really don't do anything. Oh, yeah, they do. They pay for the government. I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, how does the government get its money? Through taxes. No, I said through private sector taxes, because you work for the government, they pay you, and you pay taxes who? Back to the government. I said that is just a revolving fund. That creates or generates nothing. It is the private sector that generates all of the dollars that the government operates on. Yeah. And so when you start talking about the private sector and how much you have to tax them in order for this big behemoth over here to live, you start looking at this and saying, well, you know what, we need more taxpayers, or we need these current taxpayers we have to pay more if we have this insatiable appetite up here for more money.
So what's the answer? So back to schools. Yeah, so how do we fund, I mean, and again, you know how this system, how messed up this is.
You know what I got into this business for?
What's that?
I got into this business to see if we couldn't make Oregon a little more friendly towards business. Uh-huh. Since I have been in there, we have gone totally the opposite direction. I was talking with someone in economic development today, and I said, this is my frustration. I was talking to the Business Oregon director over in my office 2 weeks ago during Ledge Days, and I said, Chris, I said, do you ever deal, and he's underneath the governor, and what's his position? His position is economic development in Oregon. We need economic development. Well, I asked the foolish question several weeks before that, well, how much money does the state of Oregon spend on economic development? trying to get companies to move into Oregon or to spur development here, to create entrepreneurs. How much money does the state of Oregon spend on this? And they said, well, what does Rep. Barreto want to know that information for? I said, because I want to know how much money we waste trying to bring businesses in when in the policy side of things in the legislature, we're developing policy that says we're not interested in businesses here, we'd like to ship them off elsewhere. This Measure 97 does exactly that. When LRO comes out and they say, we will lose 38,000 private sector jobs here, and here you've got the state of, and the governor saying, yeah, we want 97, and then you see, well, wait a minute, what's economic development trying to do? They're trying to create more jobs coming into the state, and we're chasing them out.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me how that works. I mean, you might as well take a gun and just shoot yourself in the foot several times.
Right.
You may see that I'm a little passionate about this.
You don't feel strongly about this, do you?
You know.
No.
So you asked the question.
No, and I totally get. So you
asked the question.
But the critics of your position, or the critics of being conservative, which I am too, will be like, okay, well then what is the answer?
Okay, the answer is, if you would like to see Oregon prosper, what brings prosperity into a state?
Openness.
Okay, what brings prosperity into a state is product that we generate in the state that goes out of the state. So agriculture.
That's a win-win.
Agriculture is great because we grow this product, we create jobs through this product, and we sell this product outside the state, and dollars come from outside in here. So it works the same way as a nation. For us, we ship 25% of our product out of the country, and what happens? Other countries send their dollars here because they bought our product, and then it comes into the country, into the state, into the county, into the city, and that's how you generate prosperity. Okay, so Oregon should be looking at this, and they should, what kind of jobs should we be looking for to make us a more prosperous state and to create these jobs? You cannot build an economy on minimum wage jobs. You can't build an economy on service jobs. You have to build an economy on producing a product and shipping it out. Now, Nike doesn't quite do that. However, they have their product built elsewhere, but those dollars flow into the state, you know. And if they had a taxation model like the rest of us do, then those dollars would then flow through income tax into the state because they're producing a product, they're shipping it abroad, dollars are coming back in. The state should be encouraging businesses like that to come in and to create the jobs, create the higher paying jobs so that we have more taxpayers paying into the system.
So the reason you are so passionate about this is because 97 is going the opposite direction of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I started in on this at Measure 66 and 67. One, you don't tax businesses on their gross sales. When we were hemorrhaging in 2009, and this is when I basically got into this political arena, and here the state of Oregon comes along and says, well, you know what? If you lost money this year and you didn't make any money, we're going to charge you on your we're going to tax you on your gross sales.
Because we can't charge you if you didn't make
money.
money.
Because you didn't make any money, we lost money. You're hemorrhaging. It's a recession. But you know what? We still need the revenue, you know, and we're not getting it. So rather than feel for the companies that are out there just trying to stay alive, they come along and they're laying on the ground writhing, you know, in pain, and they come along and kick them a few more times for some more revenue, because that revenue is so important to the state. Does the state ever think about cutting back, you know, like a business has to do?
Right.
That's not in their vocabulary. So. So do I get frustrated with this thing? I do, but you know, there's a battle out there for Oregon right now. Here's the other thing. So what happens? You hang out this sign saying this is how Oregon treats business.
Right.
Now, at the same time, this economic development saying, well, wait a minute, we want a shingle hanging outside the states that says we want to welcome businesses in. You know. Where do you get your information? You go to the internet and you look at it. You go look at business-friendly states. I mean, you can Google anything, rich states, business-friendly states, states with the greatest opportunity. I mean, whatever you want to do, see where Oregon settles in there. Now, there's one more thing I want to add before we run out of time, and that is where Oregon sits in cost of living. The cost of living in Oregon is right up there, depending on where you read, between 12th and 7th highest in the country.
Okay.
Our median wage The average wage of the Oregonian is down around 28 or 29. Okay, so you have a lower than average median wage, and you have a cost of living right up here at the top. This is before 97. So now you add $500 to $600 a year to every man, woman, and child in Oregon. Where do you think that's going to take that cost of living? We're going to bump right up there to near the highest, if not the highest, in the whole country.
Right.
And then you're going to say, come on in, businesses. We have this real high cost of living here in Oregon, and so we need you to come in and help feed us.
Right.
I'm sorry. It won't work. And so you're looking at long term. Here are the people that are promoting this 97, all they're looking at is from one perspective. We need more revenue. We need, and most of them, and through a genuine lens, they're saying we need more money for our kids and for schools so that we can get off the bottom of this list where we are in graduation rates and standardized testing to where we can have a good education system, and that's fine. I mean, I think everybody wants that. But the thing is, if you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater over here just to get this, and you've got nothing to sustain it from then on, because you're going to get that income for the first 2 years, maybe 4 years, it'll start going, 6 years, it'll probably be getting down around here, and then you're going to start saying, gee, where'd all the jobs go? Where'd the business, where'd the income go?
Right.
You know, so this little short-term fix is going to end up killing the state for years ahead.
Wow. Well,
that's my perspective.
Well, I appreciate you coming by, and I mean, I appreciate your experience, and we value your opinion. You know, we do appreciate the investment that you've made in the community over a long period of time.
Well, you know what, Brett, I'm trying not to lose my sense of humor over this whole thing. You know, because they said, whenever you go to Salem, you know, make sure you don't lose your sense of humor because you're going to need it. It's extremely valuable. And so when you see this stuff going on over there, it is frustrating because I see a bigger picture, you know, and I have this tendency to look down a few years, you know, and I have this tendency to kind of look at it from 30,000 feet and look at the whole picture. But many people don't do that. I mean, they just look at what their needs are now, and so they don't look at solutions, you know, saying, how did we get here? I mean, when we have mistakes out in business, and every business has them, you know, but say it's a production mistake, and we build 500 parts and they're all wrong, you know. I mean, there's a cost to that, you know, and the first thing you ask is, can we salvage them, you know? The second thing you say is, where do we go from here, and how do we make new parts or whatever? And then the third thing it is, how do we prevent this from happening again? Right. You know, that is just a real simple 3-step, you know, approach that we have to some of these things. But with the state, they very seldom look back and say, well, how did this originate, or what's the problem back here? It's always, how do we put a Band-Aid on it? How do we fix it? We never go to the source of the problem. And until we start looking at this from a little bit different perspective and say, let's start looking at the problem from its source, and then see where we are here, how we got here, and then say, okay, what do we need to get to here, but how do we fix this back here so we don't end up there down here? You know, and you got 90 people over there in the legislature, with all from different districts, with different missions, you know, with different needs, with different goals, and sometimes it's a little difficult for everyone to come onto the same page. You know, matter of fact, it's darn near impossible. But, you know, we're all different. We all have different abilities, gifts, and levels of knowledge, you know, and so you come in there and you learn and you work with one another. So. Well,
thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it. You know,
Brett.
You know, maybe not everybody agrees with you and your position.
I don't see how they can disagree.
But nobody can doubt your desire to make Eastern Oregon sustainable and healthy and good. You know, and I think that's admirable. Nobody doubts your motives, and I really appreciate that.
You know, one of the things, I am on economic development here in Union County, and it has been tough. It has been tough to get businesses to come to Union County, but it's been tough all over. It's tough to get businesses to come to anywhere in rural Oregon. Right. And unless we start taking a look at things at the state level that says, how do we help these communities out here not to dry up and blow away, you know, we need to start looking at some right fixes. And right now, I'm just saying these fixes aren't.
Just going in the wrong direction.
It's going in the wrong direction.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, LeGrand Alive. Appreciate you tuning in. And again, thanks for our sponsor, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grand Ron Hospital, Valley Realty, and Marketplace Family Foods, which they are going to be open here very soon, within days from now. They have stuff on the shelves downstairs. You're going to love the store. So thanks a lot, Greg. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett.
All right. We'll see you next time. All right. Your microphone's
Okay.